You are now tuned into Reppin Sessions Podcast. Exclusive interviews with White Oak Roughneck legends. Follow on Instagram and Facebook. Reppin the Roughnecks.
Reppin Sessions Podcast, Episode 3. We got a special one here, guys. 1970 team. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves since we have 5 gentlemen here. We're going to start to the left of me.
Okay, in high school, I was Ronnie Screws. Since then, I've changed my last name. I'm Ron McOlin now. Won't go into that big story. Maybe some later. On the football team, I was offensive guard and defensive tackle. Much better offensive guard than I was a defensive tackle. And I was number 60.
He was also first team All-State.
Yeah, first team
Gotta
All-State.
mention that.
Not the only one here that was first team All-State.
Somebody else,
Yep.
So my name's Bobby Hawthorne. I was a defensive back and a wide receiver, and my number was 81.
I'm Ronny Peery, and I was defensive end
You were
and
all district.
guard, and my number was 64.
I'm James Marcus Oliver. I was number 73, and I was offensive tackle and defensive tackle, but mainly offensive tackle.
Dan Denton, offensive tackle and defensive linebacker, number 71.
Middle linebacker.
Middle linebacker.
Middle linebacker.
All state as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Danny was All-State.
Remember when you
And-
told me I was your memory?
Yeah.
And he got a college scholarship to
Yeah, he went to Tulsa.
Tulsa.
Okay.
Had 4 years, but cashed it in after 1 year.
Injury?
No.
What happened?
Just loss of affection, I think. I'd been in this little town my whole life and just did not have the allegiance to the new team, things being as different as they were. And I've told others, might as well tell you, I'm happy to have left football at that point just to protect my health because of the repetitive brain injuries. I mean, at the time I lamented it, and everyone said, well, that's a shame giving away a 4-way scholarship. But I think now, in retrospect, I can safely say it probably saved my life. I wouldn't be here.
So, were you a 13-year Roughneck?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Everyone else 13 Roughneck as
Yep.
well?
Not me.
No?
White Oak, my sophomore.
Where were you originally from?
I grew up in Longview, Pine Tree.
Okay.
From-
Hemel Handicac put the spell on him and sent him on out here.
So he got recruited.
Handicack
No,
was,
I'm
just kidding.
joking.
was my 7th grade science teacher.
Well, I talked about him in the last one because they wanted Mr. Handicac over at Maney to get the young guys ready, like I talked about Coach Johns and Coach Cross and getting us ready. One thing I wanted to mention, I want to talk about Clay Coach a minute. I didn't get to talk about him in the last one. He played in '69 and he had an eligibility problem because he had moved and come back and back when they were so strict on the eligibility, and he was a great guy, and he stayed with us, and he took care of the phones and the clipboard and all that, and he ended up being a sergeant of arms and keeping sports editors out of the dressing room at certain times. Your old boss, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but anybody remember the Hallsville scrimmage?
No.
Which year you mean?
When we were seniors.
No.
Remember we went over there and we started playing them, and Coach Bratton was hollering at me to get up off the ground and go block somebody else. About that time they brought the band in, and it was just like we were playing them all over again. And I think we scored 5 or 6 touchdowns and they didn't score.
They brought the band out of scrimmage.
They brought the band to their scrimmage. And then we get to West Rusk. What I remember about West Rusk is they let their grass be cut a little bit higher, and we got hot. And I remember some sports editor of the Gager wrote this story about an old toy and it falling off the shelf. Hawthorne, you want to tell us? And we got down there Look at that.
Yeah,
Got it
Died.
filled up.
I taught about that. Tell us about that, Hawthorne.
Well, I'll read you the lead.
Down here.
It's, have you ever opened a closet door and had a pile of old toys or clothes fall in your face? Things that you used to play with but no longer have any use for. That was the lead. So I did not, first of all, I didn't know anything about West Rusk. So I just thought that was kind of a cute lead. Well, next thing I know, we get over to West Rusk and they took that lead and they put it on a sheet of paper and posted it everywhere. So that was one of their, I don't think they needed that much motivation to want to beat us, but it didn't help any. And when the game was over and we did win, barely, Coach Griffin said to me, we'll have no more of that. and I said,
No more fodder for the enemy.
yeah, and I said, trust me, I'll be more careful.
And
So,
So the West Rusk game, y'all won 22-19.
yeah,
yeah.
Y'all were West Rusk only regular season loss that year.
Yeah, they had a great team.
they did. They got beat.
What I remember about West Rusk is how huge some of those guys were. I don't know if anybody else remembered that or not, but
Dude.
I mean, we had some good sized guys on our team, but we were mostly, I think we were more of a fast team than a power team. But those guys, well, I remember
They
those
had
guys
a
were
Dolphins.
huge.
Brown was his name. He was a big old two. He was about 300 when we the ninth grade when we beat him. He was 280 when we played him then. Big old boy.
So that was the start of the season.
Yeah.
I think we all knew we were going to be good because we were 12-1 the season before, and we had Denton back, Barber back, Winford back, Joe Stevens. We had so much talent coming back. Yeah, Coker.
And I think the fact that we had Griffin and Bratton and that coaching staff,
Yeah.
for me personally, they gave me confidence that I could be better than what I thought I was. I think that helped for the whole team.
I talked about Sid last week. When I did mine in '63, he would come down here when we had that team that tied Halsell nothing to nothing. He would come down here every Sunday and he would study the film. And it didn't matter what team Coach Marshall put up, for the boys to look at. If he was off, he was down there studying it, and something clicked when he got here, in my mind. Well, he was studying way back when to do this today.
Well,
So
he had coached with John Griffin, Coach Griffin,
It Holiday's
at Holiday's Etta
But
before-
this was even before he had
Yeah.
met Coach Griffin.
and they had good teams, good success down there. So I'll just throw this in. Coach Bratton, and in school, he was Coach Bratton, but he was also my brother-in-law. And I don't know if everybody remembers that or not. But at home, I called him Sid. But when he moved up here and became coach, we had a family sit-down meeting, and he looked at me like you guys know he can look at you, and he says, "You will never call me Sid at school. I will be Coach Bratton. You want to call me Sid here at home, at the house, when it's family, you can do that, but never call me." And the second thing he told me and my sister was that when you're in my class, you better work harder than anybody else, because I'm not going to have anybody accuse me of showing favoritism to my family. You're going to have to work harder to get the same grade that everybody else is getting. And my sister, Sherry, initially took that very seriously, and I didn't, and I paid for it. So I learned real fast not to mess around.
Remember the pacifier
Oh,
Coach Bratton
gosh.
had?
Oh, yeah.
It wore it around. Have you talked about that? He wore it
No.
around his neck. And if he thought you were being weak or you were dogging it, he would get that pacifier. And,
They call it brother-in-law.
yeah, he
Yeah.
called it brother-in-law. So, they were all demanding coaches.
Before he died, he said, if I was out there now and showed this, I'd get sued. And we all laughed and went on.
Well, the other
It was
thing
different
is,
time.
But after that West Rusk game, they said, "You boys are not in shape." They ran us to death that next Monday and Tuesday. And when we played White House that Friday night, we were in shape. And it was hot again, but it didn't bother us.
So White House, y'all won 36-0.
Yeah.
So they weren't much of a competition, huh? So Mr. Denton, tell me some stories about your linebacker days. You're the quiet one over here. What do you remember most from being the All-State linebacker at your time?
Well, you were tasked with stopping the opposing team's offense, and that was mission number one. It wasn't anything that people write literature about. It was basically just smashing skulls together, and that, like I say, is the downfall of a lot of football players, is the repetitive injuries they receive that impact them negatively later on in life.
Danny, since he won't speak for himself, I'll speak for him. Middle linebacker is a key position in the defense, as you probably know. So I think he was a bigger impact than what he'd let on just him, maybe being a little humble. But it seems like I also remember Danny, and you can tell me if this is true, if my memory is wrong, because after all these years, who knows what's real and what's not. It seemed like I remember you having a bit of a temper on the field at times too.
Well,
and that sometimes was good, and sometimes it fired us up, and sometimes it wasn't quite so good.
The general mindset was, destroy the enemy, by all available means.
Yep.
And so I felt that, hatred and anger were part of that mindset. The enemy was, a force to be put down. And so I guess that's middle linebacker's main job.
Let's roll on to Spring Hill, because I stated last week that the band was having a big feud with Spring Hill. Who had the best band? And Spring Hill hired this guy to come out and judge them. So Spring Hill comes out and they play the Aggie War Hymn. And Mr. Hanson didn't play our fight song. He played the Eyes of Texas when we went out on the field. But he did. And and then when we ran out on the field, I said, well, this band business is serious. And anyway, when they judged it, the White Oak Band won. But I know that was we were all the first 3 or 4 plays. There was a bunch of fumbling back and forth. We were all kind of nervous. And we settled down, and pretty much we won the game, and we got our point across. Our middle linebacker got our point across for us, close to in the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. You remember? You remember that fist you put in Bubba Threadgill's stomach?
I do remember, adding insult to injury to somebody.
We were ahead 28-0 at the time.
I was ready to go sit on the sideline and rest a while, I guess.
They were
Get ejected out of the game for that?
I think so.
Do what?
I got thrown out for that.
Yes, you did.
They were sort of our natural rivals, because we would go to the Top Burger and they would go to, was it the Dairy Queen back then? And we'd sort of yell obscenities at each other back and forth across. We didn't need that particular thing to be rivals, but that it was a perfect rivalry.
Well, since Hallsville was no longer our main
That's right.
hate object,
Yeah, when
and Spring Hill
Hallsville
kind of took their place.
That's
But they're just out White Oak's back door over there.
They were too close.
So the hate was real then with Spring Hill even back then, because I know today, it's you see the kill the hill sign, the saying, but I guess it's not as hardcore as it was back then, huh?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I've started a new merch line called Kill the Hill. I'll be doing shirts and everything for when we play White Oak versus Spring Hill.
I kind of got upset, because COVID destroyed the ball game, and I felt like we
would have definitely won.
We would have won the ball game.
Absolutely.
This year, I don't know, because I don't know what kind of quarterback they've got or anything. But then the next Saturday night, we had Art. We played on Saturday night. It was
Before we leave Spring Hill, there's one little small story, and this is just one of those weird things. Many years after high school, probably around 1990, I was working for a company in Denver, Colorado. And a new guy came in to work, hired on, and everybody's going to introduce themselves to him. And he asked me where I was from, and I said, it's just like I always did. It's a small town in Texas. You never heard of us. And he goes, well, try me. I might know about it. No, you've never heard of it. Small town in East Texas. And he goes, I might have heard of it. And I said, well, I went to White Oak. And then he got this look on his face, and he goes, I went to Spring Hill. And he said, what year did you graduate? I said, 71. What year did you graduate? He said, 71. He said, we hated you guys. We hated you guys with a passion.
It wasn't just me.
It wasn't, yeah, it wasn't,
That's right.
it wasn't
That's
one-sided. It was, we actually were able to get along and work together, but it was a weird coincidence
still
in
think-
Denver, Colorado.
They
that many
still
years.
think that I have people that tell my sons and stuff that they still think that we were quite a recruited athletes.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
If that was true, they could have done a lot better than getting me.
And, and they were talking about, like Barber, and I said, Mike Barber lived there. His daddy was a local painter. I said,
Was Barber White
was
Oak
our-
kindergarten through 12th as well?
Third,
Yeah.
fourth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I
8
thought-
generations.
But he got accused of being recruited?
Yeah. Oh,
his,
yeah.
his older brother played in 1963 on it with him, and then he had another brother that played in 68. Ronnie Barber played defensive end. He was real good. And
I'll tell you just a good story. White Oak got the first grass tex track in all of East Texas.
Oh, here we
And
go.
our coach, Tommy Atkins, that everybody, I think nearly everybody liked him. He was on the coaching team. He was strict and stern, but everybody liked him. And he got mad, he started slobbering, and he'd shake people and stuff. But
Biting that
everybody
tongue.
respected him, He was a real good coach.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, he was in charge of the whole football field, the grass, the track, and he was the best track coach in East Texas. I think they won track for 20 years in a row, the district meet. But anyway, he Buddy Coker, this guy that was in our class, was running out for a pass, and he ran way out of bounds. Yeah, I don't know if he ended up catching the ball or not, but he landed on that they
Fresh.
just poured it.
yeah, just poured.
And he skidded across it, on his back, and just tore it all up. And Coach Atkins was like, had a fit, it was like, this was $1 million track. We had the only one,
We were in the 8th grade. Art was undefeated. We were undefeated. And we beat them 36-18. I think you should check on there and see.
36, yep. And that was y'all's homecoming game?
Homecoming.
Oh,
When we thought we had them put away, they came back right before the half, and I think it was close. And then in the second half, we went on, put them away pretty much. Went on and.
Do you have a story about homecoming? You had that little look on. You made a little expression.
not about homecoming, but about Art. They had a real good team. They would have went to state every year if it hadn't been for us.
In 3 years, they were 27-3,
Right.
Jeez.
and the 3 were against us.
Wow.
They
So
had
they did
they
not
had a
make it.
quarterback that was equal to Barber,
Byron
Franklin.
Yeah.
And then they had a running back named
L.H.
L.H. Gardner.
Fast,
And,
fast.
Yeah.
On the film, he hit me. I was defensive end. He run through there and he hit me and just knocked me back. And there wasn't too many people. I was a low center of gravity. Wasn't too many people that I got past me, but he just ran over me. L.H. Gardner. And I had talked to. He's passed away now. I talked to Byron Franklin every once in a while, and he said, "Man, L.H. was, he was everything. He run right over."
Seems like I remember watching game films after that, and there was, who knows what play it was, where Gardner, the fast running back, he was going like that, and there were 2 or 3 of us Roughnecks, probably wasn't one of them, that was trying to catch him, and he just outran him, and the coach was giving this lesson on angle of pursuit.
Yeah,
Using
he would run over.
Using that film thing on, because he said you guys ran for him here, and he was here by the time you got there.
And I got a little story. When it's in 7th grade, I remember this, and probably nobody else remembers it. I think it's 7th grade. We played Lindale. In 7th grade, if you look at the old pictures, we didn't know how to put our pads on or jockey strap. We didn't know nothing about it. It's kind of odd, new, and it's like maybe the first or second game. And Lindale was a small school then. They're big now, but they were probably about the size we were, I guess. But anyway, we played, and they had this big old quarterback named Joe Don Terry, redheaded guy. And I remember I don't know who it was, me and somebody, we tackled him back there in the backfield, and we both got up, and we said, "Did you see that guy had hair on his legs that long?" The rest of us, he had hair, and it looked like he had a beard, or something. That guy looked like
A grown man.
He's
Yeah.
big
in
too.
7th grade.
I remember that. It's just like it was yesterday when God, golly, this guy's huge.
Also, the art game is the last art story. I've been far away and lived different places. I have not stayed connected with White Oak like some of these guys have, so I don't remember a lot of stuff that some of these guys do. But that was the one game I was playing defensive tackle, and I was rushing the quarterback, and we had him backed up close to the goal line, and he was panicking because we were about to get him, and he threw the pass right at me. And being the defensive and offensive line person, I'm not supposed to catch a pass. So it came right at me, and I just knocked it down, make sure it's an incomplete pass. And I knocked it down. I looked down. I'm on the 1 yard line. All I do is catch it, fall forward, and I would have had a defensive touchdown. Only chance I've ever had in my whole career of doing that. Boy, the Coach Bratton got on to me. He pulled me out of the game and rimmed me up one side down the other and says, "What'd you do batting that thing down?" Oh gosh, that was the closest thing I ever came to something like that. And I just blew it. That was the art game.
I remember, and it's not nothing to do with some of this, but we were up there on top field practicing, and I think we were probably sophomores. We had this guy named Sam Hunt that played pro ball and was hitting that 7-man sled and spinning and hitting it again. And Sam was doing it and everybody was doing it, and Sam did a couple of them, and then he spun and he missed the pads and hit the crossbar and cracked his helmet, knocked him out.
Jeez.
And he wore a big old high top shoes like Johnny Unitas. I remember that, and he used to kick off he'd kick it in the end zone.
Any other stories about Arp or Spring Hill? Mr. Denton, you want to talk about the guy you hit? Who was he? Did y'all have like a rival before the game, or he just kind of got to you in the middle of the action, or what?
The shared ill will, extreme prejudice there that became impossible for me to contain at the moment, and just a little icing on his cake, so to speak.
We had heard 100 times, you can't do us any good when you're over on the bench. You heard that, because I heard it. We all heard it. Don't get kicked out.
He was a great.
Yeah.
He was only 5'6", maybe 5'7". He was not tall.
Stevens?
But fantastic running back. And then you had Winford,
Fast.
who was a slasher. He was like Gale Sayers. He could get outside. He could go up the middle. I mean, we had
Winford was
two
bigger.
of the three best running backs in these
so he could
classes.
run over people,
played-
or he could run around them.
Yeah. Winford played running back, and he also played wide receiver some too.
Yeah.
Didn't you say he got hurt his senior year?
Yeah, he was hurt there for a while. He
Yeah.
messed an ankle up or something.
Yeah.
He kept playing.
It was-
he kept playing,
yeah,
but he wasn't
it was
100%.
after-
He wasn't 100% anymore.
No, it was after the ARC game.
This group here, our teams, we won like everything in the 7th grade, everything in the 8th grade, everything in the 9th grade. I mean, I don't think we lost. We had that one in the quarterfinals where we lost on penetrations, but I don't think we lost about 1 or 2 games our whole everything's been in school. And I remember we was down at Rusk, and we was on the 8th grade team, and the 9th grade team had a guy named Jim Goss, and he was good fullback, and we run over him. And it seemed like he got hurt or something happened, and the other Rusk they were pretty good, and they were hollering, and they were thought they were going to beat us when they put him out. And so on the 8th grade team, we had already played or something, and so Coach put Joe and Winford in there, and we scored like 5 times in a row on them. Put our guys in there,
So the next game, New Diana, y'all blew them out 50-14. I remember anything much about that game?
I remember that the end zone, they left the water on or something because it was flooded. Anybody remember that? Well, I was in the end zone once, and I fell, and it was just like a big splash. And we didn't know if they did it on purpose or what, but I do remember that. But we blew them out pretty.
What year did we play Queen City?
Oh,
I don't think that was our senior year.
That was our junior year.
Because I remember playing them, and their field
like
was
a cow.
terrible. It seemed like it had
The sewer line broke.
it had grass burrs in it and pine cones, and I mean it was terrible.
I always used to joke. It wasn't true, but I always used to joke that Queen City was the one that when we showed up to play football, they ran the cows off the field so we could play football.
Probably had the grass burrs and stuff.
It was bad.
So Troop 32-0. They weren't much of a competition after Diana. And then Sabine 60-14. Y'all remember much about the Sabine?
Sabine never had. They seemed like we played all the years was in junior high and everything. We always. Now they had a pretty good basketball, but football they never had.
I remember the cheerleaders from Sabine.
Oh, I did too.
I'll be honest with you.
I got caught over there on the side talking to
We were
them.
flirting with them, or they were flirting with us, but they were really cute. They definitely were.
Yeah.
So I remember that.
Am I dreaming this? Didn't when we were seniors and we played the games here at home, then if we got way ahead, they would take us out and then we would go back out in our street clothes the second half and sit on the bench. Am I dreaming?
I don't ever remember getting my street clothes. I don't ever do it.
You don't ever remember doing that?
I remember being pulled out and letting the extras play when we got far ahead.
I just
I don't remember ever changing clothes.
Changing clothes and getting out.
I can't imagine we had enough people to cover for us because, we didn't have that many people on the team to start with.
Yeah, you're right. My mind is, kind of screwed up.
I have one memory of Troop. It was a home game.
I know what you're talking about.
I talked Coker and I don't know who else, and we taped our shoes white, like Joe Namath. And and Coach Griffin led it, and he said, "I'm going to let you do this, but if it distracts or does anything, then it's coming off." Well, at halftime it came off.
Which is Billy White Shoes Johnson.
Well, this is before Joe Namath was the guy.
Yeah.
And so we all thought we'd be real cool by just taking some athletic tape and taping our shoes all white. And that would make us look like, superstars, which some of them were. But at halftime he said, that's enough of that tape. So we took that off.
The respect for your fashion statement diminished after a half.
Yeah,
I remember.
Exactly.
We had, the Troop had this 6'5", and I don't know, 265 defensive tackle named Tony Vasquez or something, the boxing family over there around Troop. And sometimes he was on this side and sometimes he was on that side. And I said, Lord, let him be over with Danny. They're about the same size. And sure enough, that night Danny got him. I didn't get him. I got the other guy. So I remember that. And then Union Grove, I remember it rained that night.
64-0. Y'all gave it to them good, that one, huh?
Yeah.
600 total yards.
Yeah. I remember
of offense.
I remember that their coach said that everybody put their pants on the same way. Griffin came out and said something about that in the pep rally. And then it was no more barbecue beef sandwiches. It was chicken fried steak the rest of the way. Miles Pruitt made an announcement to me. I overheard Mr. Matney talking to Coach Atkins. Said, now y'all play Timpson down there at Henderson. I could warm the barbecue beef sandwiches up, and we can all come back to White Oak and eat them at White Oak. And Miles looked at me and says, barbecue beef, hell, we're in the playoffs. We eat chicken fried steak. And I just roared laughing when Miles said that.
We were called, I don't know where it came from. If it was White Oak that came up with it, I thought, my memory says it was the Longview newspaper that was covering our game. It called us the Maroon Machine.
Yeah.
Because we had the maroon tops and maroon pants. Yeah. And we were so efficient. Yeah. I guess they called us a maroon
Joe
machine.
Stevens and Winford Whirlaway Wilson.
And I have no idea where that maroon machine came from. Bobby, you could have invented it for all
I'm sure it was
Bobby?
Dan Thomas.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't work for him then.
Yeah, he wasn't working for him then.
No.
We'll get into that in a minute. But we go on to By District, and Coach Griffin tells us how tough Timpson's going to be. And we get down there, and on the kickoff, Danny knocks out one of their best players. And then all they had left was...
He had it coming.
I mean, he put
his
him
first
out.
play of the game. How did he have it coming already, Danny?
And
just because he existed, huh?
So we're in there, and I think we're already ahead 7-0. And Coach Griffin tells me, says, I want you to go in there and tell Mike to run 23 veer, and which that was an option play, and tell him to make sure he hands the ball off. Well, I told him, and he called a snap count. And about that time, the linebacker, his name was Boucher or Bouchel or something like that. He blitzes, and I hit him right in the hole. And we both landed on the ground, and he gave me the best cussing I'd had in a long time. And I said, hey, he said, get off me. And then he called me a name. And I said, well, it's too late now. He's way down there. And I think they tackled Barber on the 3-yard line, and then we scored. And then at the half, we get in there, we're ahead 39-0. Coach Griffin says, fellas, I just apologize to y'all. I was so wrong. I was so wrong about them. And I don't like to tell y'all a story. I really thought they were going to be tough. And when Denton knocked that boy out, that he was their best player. Him and another one.
Who was that? What team?
Timpson.
Took the wind out of themselves.
You know, they lost it right there at the beginning of the year, of the game when Eddie knocked him out. And then
He was done for the whole game?
Yeah, he was done. And then that old boy
I make sure.
that blitzed that I knocked down, he was supposed to be the second best player. And he was mad. And then we just, after that, we rolled on. Okay. Anybody else have a Timpson story? And Joe Stevens got us a police escort to the restaurant to eat that night. I never will forget that.
Joe Stevens got it for us?
Yeah, he knew this cop. And he said, would you give us an escort? And we got a police escort to the restaurant. I remember all the little things.
You know, I had forgotten earlier when you talked about Matinee and the barbecue sandwiches,
Yeah.
and suddenly goes back and goes, man, we had a lot of barbecue sandwiches. But you're right. After a while, it was no longer barbecue sandwiches.
Yeah.
It was chicken fried steak.
Fried steak. Well, when
I remember we ate
we
really good.
We played Sabine over there, and we came back and got him. When we played to Diana, he had them down here too, and that was the two. And we had eaten at the Streamliner when we played West Rush.
That's amazing that you can remember those kind of details.
Hey y'all, that was my job for 34 years to remember.
Yeah.
I can remember. And then we ate somewhere in Tyler when we played White House. Okay, anybody else got anything on Timpson?
If you ask Winford, his name was Winford William Wilbur, WWW, Wine, Women, and Winford.
Oh,
That's
so he
what
was
he
the
was-
ladies' man of
that's
the
what he
hockey
was.
team back in the
Yeah,
day.
they would go to Gladewater every Saturday night. And those boys in Gladewater hated to see them coming because Gladewater that year was 09-1. I mean, that was the year after they had a real good season, and then they went up. And Winford and Joe and Miles gave them fits over there in Gladewater. And every week when they went over there, they were laughing. We'd hear the Gladewater score, and they'd get to laughing and talking about what they were going to tell them on Saturday night over there.
You know, we had three guys who didn't play their senior years. Billy Mitchell, remember
Yeah.
him?
Mm-hmm.
He would have been. He was
Yeah.
big, tough, mean.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Smith, remember him?
Oh, yeah.
He was a great athlete.
They played junior year but didn't play senior year?
Yeah. And
By choice or?
they moved back. And
Actually, Billy
Gary-
Mitchell, he quit like his sophomore year.
Yeah.
Quit school.
Yeah, after sophomore. He had a lot of back.
And Gary Klein.
Well, he quit school.
He moved off too.
Yeah,
so,
Gary
I mean,
Klein moved to
Yeah.
Houston
so those
after
were
his
three guys
sophomore.
that year.
And another
That's
guy
right.
that would have been good in our class that's passed away was Randy Owens. He would have been
yeah.
He would have
He
been a
would.
great football player. He was tough on the playground when we was growing up. He
Yeah,
was
he was
a
tough.
he was a stud.
I remember a time, senior year, on a weekend, we're out there, I don't know how we hooked up. Randy Owens and I were out in the parking lot. You know, they had the yard line marker on the parking lot
For
by
the
the football
band?
field,
Yeah,
mostly
for
for the
the
band, I think. And we were out there, and we were playing that punt game. We try to back each other up. Randy Owens, when he had punt that ball,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he could punt.
I mean, I never got him. You were a punter, weren't you, Danny?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Danny
Danny
was our
was
punter.
punter.
So I was,
Yeah.
you know,
We're gonna get to that.
I always gave it everything I got to try to back him up, and every time
Oh yeah, Randy was.
he was a he was.
I think everybody in our class was either on the football team, in the band, a usherette, or something. Nobody had maybe one or two people, and that was it. You know, everybody did something.
Gary Walker was our
Manager?
photographer.
Photographer,
For
yeah.
senior year. He had a deal with Brookshire's. He worked late on Saturday night where he could get off on Friday night, especially when we had home games, because he was the best photographer that in that class that was doing that. And he came out and took
And our, who was our manager? Was it Jimmy Williams?
Jimmy Williams.
I don't know if
And
he
Dwayne
was
Tuttle?
Dwayne Tuttle, our senior
Dwayne.
year.
You're right, Dwayne.
I
I think Jimmy maybe was there. our senior
Jimmy
year.
was in there sophomore year, and I don't know if Jimmy went.
Atkinson?
I think Jimmy went on back to the band after. Coach Bratton in '69. I'll just preface this. About 2 or 3 weeks before we played Paul Pewitt, he says, "We got to do something." This is a Charlie Owens story. He says, "We got to do something about our goal line defense. We got to put some people in here." So he gets Ricky Woods and Lewis, and then I think Clay on part of it, put them in there. And we didn't know at that time that's what won the Paul Pewitt ball game. So that year, it came down to 19-14 with 2 seconds left, or 8 seconds left. They had 1 play left, and they went right at Lewis. And Lewis Bickett was my cousin. He was 72 then. And he made the tackle, and I think Woods was there, and I think Clay. They all just collapsed. And
Jimmy.
Paul Pewitt didn't score. They thought they scored. So they had revenge on their mind. But anyway, so, we're going to meet him where we met him before. We're going to Marshall. And,
Same location.
same location, and I'm scared. I tell you, you talk about emotions. Yeah, my emotions were there, but because I was always the one that had the revenge on my mind. I didn't have any revenge. I hope we play good tonight. I hope we go out there and make a good showing. We can't let these fellas beat us. And me and Danny, I remember at the end of the ball game, we were both we were crying on the sideline because it had just really gotten so emotional because they thought they were going to win.
But I remember the emotion attached to that
Yeah.
game because, as what I remember, as confident as we were, we believed in ourselves. I don't know what it was. That game, that week, seemed like it was a very difficult week. We knew the history. We knew what had happened last year.
Yeah.
And here we were, same people as last year in the playoffs, same location.
Yeah.
And they're going to be mad as hell. And
Yeah. Coach Griffin showed the very last part of that ball game, and he says, "See, boys, the referees run along there and chalk dust is flying up. See, they didn't score." And of course, they swore up and down that they did. He showed that to us again before we were going to play them the next year. So
The goal line stand, he showed y'all that?
yeah, he showed us that on a Tuesday or Wednesday before we played Paul Pewitt. Right at the first of the game, we're rolling. Barber hits Hawthorne down to the 3-yard line. Coach Griffin says, "Go in there and run 35 gap." I went in there and hit that boy and knocked him all the way to the center, and Winford walked in standing up. But Hawthorne got the ball down there for us.
Anybody else would have scored.
How many
Bobby.
touchdowns did you get from Barber that year?
1 or 2. I had maybe 13 catches, 17 catches, something like that.
That was
I
one
don't
of your
know.
best. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that
I
was
think.
that.
She got us down there.
But-
And then we were rolling along there pretty good, and we had a lead built up. I think it was 22-7, and then they made a big long drive. I can't remember. I think it might have been in the third quarter, and they went for 2. And at that time, it was 22-13, and it would have been 22-15. I think Buddy scored on a long pass
Yeah.
in that game. Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
is that the game we talked about Miles being key
You know what?
key thing?
So anyway, we beat them 34-13.
Danny picked off a pass. What the yearbook says in that game.
Did y'all have any players from the past while you're in high school that y'all like looked up to?
Well, Sam Hunt was, when we were sophomores and Sam Hunt was a senior,
Yeah.
he made a big impression on me.
Don Heron too.
Don Heron,
Yeah. And Tim Davis was a great receiver,
Yep.
high school receiver.
and
Jim Goss was
Jim Goss was
awesome. He doesn't
amazing.
He doesn't run over you then run out of bounds.
and a name that not many people remember probably, the year when we were junior, the guy that played that I played guard that started, I backed him up my junior year, was Billy Silvertooth.
Chuck.
Huh?
Chuck.
Chuck Silvertooth.
Billy was a senior.
Yeah, Billy was the older. Chuck Silvertooth. And Chuck made All-State his senior year in that position. And then I came back next. I was backing him up that year. I didn't even start as a junior. I started as a senior and backed him because I was backing him up before, and I made All-State in that same position. So I got to say, he must have taught me a few things.
In practice, they kept calling some play that would send me across the middle of the field, and he would just over and over.
Linebacker.
Man, we're on the same team. I'm about to be in the hospital. I mean, he just demolished me 3 plays in a row. So he was tough.
Anything else?
We had Barbara Seal, and that was, I think, maybe our best half.
Best
We
half.
went in the first half, we
Worst
were
half.
nothing. And we came out in the second half, and I think we outscored them 30-7 or something like that. What was the final score?
36-20 was the
36.
final
Yeah,
score.
but they were up
Fine.
17-7 or something like that at
Yeah.
half. So,
14-6.
okay.
And Barbara
so-
Hill was the one that had beaten us the year before.
No. That was,
Okay.
No, that was Mart.
Mark.
No, in
Yeah,
Athens.
I'm sorry,
in the
yeah.
rain.
Athens during
Yeah.
the typhoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
But
That was a quarterfinal game that we lost the year before. This is the quarterfinal game playing.
yeah,
Yeah.
we played at Deer Park, and it was in one of the first stadiums that I saw that it was built into the ground. Everything else, they put the stadiums up, but this one was in a bowl basically, and we were all kind of.
In kickoff return, when they scored to make it 7-0, we had a return left on. Joe gets the ball and he whizzes over to the right. He doesn't, he sees the opening. And so I saw it and I cut across the field and I got real close to it. And I looked up and there's Clay Coots going, come on, at Joe, and Joe scores, and it's 7-6. And then they scored again right before the half. And they tried an onside kick, and they kicked it right to me. And I could have picked it up and ran with it. And I said, we've had a lot of bad luck in the first half. I'm going to fall on this thing. Smart. And I did. And, and I think we just ran it out. And then we went on into the half. First thing happened after everybody went to the restroom and got them something to drink. Again, Coach Bratton says, Ronnie, Danny, James Marcus, Don, all y'all come over here. He says, fellas, you know how many yards total offense we have this half? No, sir. We got 20. And you know how many first downs we've got? No, sir. 2. And one of them was because it was a penalty against them. He just raved for about 2 or 3 minutes. And, in other words, that's all he had to say. We got the picture. Mm-hmm. And then Coach Griffin got up and he says, okay, fellas, it's up to y'all. Mm-hmm. You can get your head out of your rear ends and go out there and play ball. He actually said this. Or you can just fold it up, whatever you want to do. And we went out there. When we came in, I never will forget, Don and Edward was in front of me. And just like that, Tommy Atkins goes, whop, whop, hits them both on the shoulder pads. Get your heads up, get your heads up. And I don't know who else was back there with me, seniors, I think. We just started easing our heads up where Coach Atkins wouldn't see us. We went on in, and then, like I say, we came back out. And
Turned it around.
Yeah, turned it around, and they didn't know. I mean, it was, fabulous. They were all long touchdown runs, the second half, or all long passes. I know Mike ran a 96-yard touchdown, and Winford, they said he clipped, but I don't think he did. I think he had his head on the right side. But we got that call back, or it would have been 42-20. So, anybody else have anything about the ball game they want to say?
Is this, which game is this?
Oh, I got one more
Barber's
story.
Hill.
I got one
Barber's
more
Hill.
story.
Quarterfinals.
Barber's Hill got a roughing the punter penalty because Edward was hurt that week. I was running the backs, me and Squeaky and Don. No, Don was snapping. I don't know who else, but we were back there in front of Danny. And so, they came in there and we blocked, and one of them got to Danny, and he kicked it, and then they roughed him. And so Danny looks up, and the ball's down there, and they've tackled him. Danny gets the flag and just starts waving it around. And the more he waved, the more our crowd.
Do you remember that, Danny?
No, he don't, but it happened.
In the heat of the moment.
He starts waving that red flag. It's red back then. And referee says, you need to put that back down. Because that's where I marked where they roughed you. Where I can assess the penalty. Of course he did. But anyway, that's my Danny Denton story. Now,
Is that the game Edward got hurt, or was it the game before?
he got hurt at Paul Puett, but he didn't play. Now, he played at Pflugerville. Then our bus broke down, and we didn't, they had to go to Houston and get another bus. They sent for a bus to bring us from Deer Park to Baytown where we were going to eat. And we were in the band bus, the twirling bus.
The next game is one that I felt like we could have spent this whole time talking about this one game.
Yeah.
Pflugerville. That ate my lunch. That tore me up, losing that game. I just knew we were going to make it to the state final. I knew we could take them on, and we would play Mart. I think it was Mart.
No, Sonora.
Sonora. Mart
Sonora won state that year.
Yeah. Of course, Woodford was at 80% or whatever he was
Right.
at the time for that game, and Edward was out. I thought Edward was out that game.
Edward played that game, I think.
I know that I played defense in that game, and only reason I would have been in on defense is if Edward was out.
I think Edward centered that game. Maybe.
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't think he played defense on that.
Well, I don't think he went both ways on it.
No, because I was in.
'Cause he got hurt at the end of the Paul Pitt game, and he didn't play at all against Barber's Hill because Don went both ways that night. I know, but I remember.
That was a tough game. I remember now, and hopefully, Danny, you can remember this, or James Marcus could probably remember.
Don't count on it.
James knows everything. I think towards the end of the season that the coaches designed some special offensive plays where normally Danny and I were on opposite sides of the line, and they designed some special plays where Danny and I would run up, guard, and tackle right next to each other on the same side, either one and over, and then they'd run right behind us. And it seemed like we did that in the Pflugerville game quite frequently. And when they saw that, they knew what was coming,
Yeah.
but they still never could completely stop it. We still would grind out first downs. But that was a
I
heartbreak.
remember we got the ball and we drove down to the 2-yard line. We had 4th and 2. We got a motion penalty, 4th and 7. And I know what Bobby Hawthorne told me about 5 or 6 years ago. He said he had been running this pass pattern from a wide formation, and Coach Griffin called it in tight.
Yeah.
And
I can't believe you remember that.
I remember good and bad, but anyway, that's just, I remember you told me
Yeah.
that you wish you had been out.
Yeah. Well, that was a tough game. We had turnovers the worst time, and they got lucky on a run. That guy, he was first team All-State too. His last name was Street, and he was also state 100-meter champion. And so, I guess in a way, the good news was next week Pflugerville got demolished by Sonora. Sonora they were back-to-back state champions, I think. They had a kid named Ed Lee Renfro.
Yeah.
Went to Texas Tech, and they beat them 45-7.
45 to 6 or 7.
And I remember
But the
I
only,
don't think it would have beat us that.
I remember thinking, we talked about that. There's no way in the world they would have beat us that bad. If they,
but I heard all the old timers say, y'all better be glad y'all didn't win that ball game against Pflugerville, because y'all wouldn't have stood a chance against Sonora.
I don't
And
think.
I believe we
even,
would.
even if we
We
lost
had
the final game, it would
Yeah.
have been a victory just to have gotten
Yeah.
there after 3 years
Yeah.
of getting into the playoffs, but not quite getting
That's
to
right.
the final game. I mean, that was what was.
But-
And that
I'm
would
gonna
have
tell
given,
you-
I'll
that
tell
would
you
have given
something.
another week for
You know.
Winfred to recover a
That's
little
right.
bit, and he might have been
But
a
I'm
little
gonna
better.
tell you, our mentality, we would have went down there to win it, because some of us
They would not have beaten us that bad.
Some of us were in kindergarten when Cotton Miles went undefeated in 1958, had probably one of the best teams White Oak ever had. You know, and
We were going to be it. We were going to be the one that replaced that one. That's what I thought in my mind.
Well, Ronnie, I don't know. That one was an awful good ball team.
Well, I thought once
we
got,
were awful good
once we
too.
got in there like that, and
Yeah.
I saw what we were doing.
Yeah.
I again, that's why this
Yeah.
game tore me up so much. 'Cause I
Yeah.
just knew we were going to be in.
It would have been
Yeah.
a tremendous boost to have
And-
made it to the final game
Yeah.
after 2 years of not quite
not
getting
quite
there.
getting there. Yeah,
That
that's
might
right.
have been the boost that was required
Now-
to win the final game.
Go ahead,
You know.
Rob.
That last ball game when we played Pflugerville, do y'all remember any discoordination or something between the quarterback Mike Barber and the lineman or something?
I think you're thinking about the next year, Barbers Hill in Longview.
Well, I don't know. I just some
No,
of my
there was-
people saying that they, say, well, he got on the lineman or something about not blocking or something, and they said, well, we just won't block or something. I mean,
No,
something.
that was the next
no,
year.
that wasn't
Mike
it.
Mike never said a word.
I never would have done
We
that.
were in good
I
graces
never
with
would've done
Barber.
We-
our
we
senior
all
year.
got along.
Okay, I was just that might
But I
have been
remember
the next.
hearing
That
about
was the
That
next
was
year.
I
falling
remember
from
that.
races with his teammates the
yeah,
next year.
I remember that.
Because
something
he'd
like that.
gone showboat Hollywood or something.
I'll tell you what I remember about Pflugerville is that after the game, everybody cried in the locker room. And I don't mean I mean sobbed. It was even Denton cried. It was
I cry
heartbreaking.
easy.
It was
cried.
heartbreaking. We were all
I
just
cried.
demolished.
Well, like I said, after the third year, I mean, that was our last chance
Yeah.
to do it,
Yeah.
being seniors. So everyone, I think, expected to make it to state.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we actually did think that
third time's a
we
charm.
in a way kind of overlooked Pflugerville a little bit, I think.
Maybe
When
so.
we-
And,
We were ranked number 1 in the state,
Yeah.
if that means anything, and Sonora was ranked number 2, and Pflugerville was down
Nine or-
8 or 9 or something like that.
I think
You-
after
you-
we beat,
Yeah.
Maybe we did
Paul
go
Good
into
a
that
little
game
bit.
a little bit
But
less mentally prepared. And
another funny
have.
thing about it is that our senior year, we were ranked number 1 in the state, and yet White Oak, as a city, was not on the official state of Texas map. Because there would be letters written into the Dallas Morning News saying, where is White Oak? It's not on the map. So they added it to the map, and the next time the map came out, we weren't even on the state map. So,
I remember when we went to Temple to play, we stopped at Waco. We ate at a restaurant called the Black Angus. And Danny told me, we were sitting there, he says, he says, everybody better get their mind on the game. We're not ready to play. And then we got in the bus and we got on about halfway to Temple from Waco. Everybody needs to get quiet now. Says, we're not ready to play. You remember saying that? Okay.
I figured I made a wisecrack about the Angus.
No, you had your mind on the game, but you were saying everybody else didn't have their mind on the game. That's what you were telling us all that were around you at that time.
So he was all business.
Wise before
Yeah,
my
he was
years.
all business going. After we ate, we stopped there and ate and went on out. Anybody else have anything?
that was a terrible day.
Terrible day.
Yeah, but like I said, the 3-year record that we compiled was
Better, yeah.
wonderful.
It's amazing.
pretty
It's something to be
special.
proud
Yeah.
of. Something to be proud of.
But
It's absolutely
like I say, this is half a century ago we're talking about.
Yeah.
Looking backwards is fine and dandy. I'm more of a advocate of looking forwards.
Yeah.
I guess my mom had a saying, "My memory basket overfloweth," and I guess in my memory overflow, all this stuff about the games that y'all remember just got lost to me, or like like I say, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Well,
or whatever.
if something we say here today, if that inspires the Roughnecks to win one ball game, it's been the way I feel.
What would y'all say to the fellow football players that are going into their senior year? Are there any words? I mean, what would you say?
I'd say don't let up. Not for a minute. Don't let up. Don't think, hey, I'm tired, I'm going to play this play just a little bit less so I can relax. Don't relax. Don't give up.
Well, I'd say, because I think back sometimes, I wish I would have did a little bit more off season. I did lift weights and did a little bit of running, but a lot more running, and a little bit better shape, because I see that, speed and strength that's where a lot of it wins a lot of games, and
Endurance.
Extra effort.
Sitting around, eating ice cream during the summer, and all I do is go fishing. So I didn't do a whole lot of. I did a little bit of weight room and stuff, but I didn't do as much. I wish I would have done a lot more. Because you can't take it back once you graduate. You wish, man, if I had to do it over with, I would have pumped on. I would have been Mr. Joe, stud. But
James?
I'd say go out there, do the best you can, give 100%, and don't let up. In the words of the coach down in Austin, keep your foot on the gas and keep it down to the floor. And also enjoy yourself, because you're never going to come this way again. Have fun. Yep. And just always remember, there's Roughnecks. There's always going to be Roughnecks. It doesn't matter if they're 95 years old, but they're watching you. And you better uphold what they've done in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010 to 20 and on.
Mr. All-State linebacker?
I'm going to quote Bob Dylan, don't follow leaders, beware of parking meters. But, I've spent the rest of my life in the counterculture, so.
Well, I want to repeat what Marcus said. I loved playing football. I mean, I just loved just the pleasure of the game. We played 80 times more football out on Edward Bates's front yard and up on the upper field, played no pads, tackle football up there. And I loved that.
Civilized violence.
It was almost as violent. I did it when I was at UT. We played no pads, tackle football on Sunday afternoon on the freshman field down there. So I just loved the game. So part of it is just enjoy it, because you're never going to get it again.
Do it for yourself and enjoy it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And if you don't enjoy it, then go find something you do enjoy and do that.
Right.
like fishing.
I got one more thing to say. Paul has asked me to be co-host with him on other podcasts, and I'm going to do it. And
There you go.
Right man for the job.
Well, I appreciate it, and I
He's a
appreciate.
walking encyclopedia, White Oak.
Doing White Oak, that's the man.
Oh, yeah,
I was
just
thinking-
White Oak.
I was thinking you was doing other things, but if
I've
you're
never
just doing
needed to
White Oak.
retain any of these facts because I had the encyclopedia.
Yeah.
I just, I hated that Winford wasn't here because he had to go to graduation. Joe had to go to graduation. Buddy Coker is out with his children, and he's getting ready to celebrate. Can y'all believe this? Buddy and Donna, 50 years of marriage in September. So we're all going. We're not only are we going to celebrate our 50th year that we didn't get to, but we're going to celebrate theirs. And he said they're going to be in Missouri, and then they're going to come here to the homecoming. But anyway, I've been blessed this year because I've got to be with this one, two times, and then that one once. So I have really been blessed, getting with my old friends. And then
There were years and years and years I didn't come to homecomings back at White Oak. I was living in Denver, living in Kentucky, or whoever. But I was at the last one, and I'm going to be at this one for sure. I enjoy so much getting back together, seeing you guys, that
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's like I didn't go to homecoming. I moved to Louisiana, and I didn't go to homecoming for 20-something years. I was gone, and I just, I could have came, but I was busy working. But now I can, I'm retired, so I can. And that made my day when I saw Jimmy Williams. And I hadn't seen him since we was playing tennis together when we were seniors up there. And standing beside him and not knowing who he was, and then meeting him and, hey, man, I can't believe I don't even know you. And if he would have died, and I would never, I want to see some people in our class that
we hadn't seen. Again, I appreciate everybody's name, and I really look forward to September the 17th and the 18th. And
they'll be here before we know it.
It sure will.
It will.
Any last words before we go? Y'all, any last words before we shut the podcast out? Anyone that want to say anything, one last thing at all?
Another thing, just for historical reference, Marcus has mentioned some of the old White Oak teams, and we've talked about Coach Bratton. Coach Bratton is a White Oak grad.
Yeah.
Back in 55.
55, I believe.
Yeah.
He was a good
And
man.
my oldest brother was a White Oak grad
Yeah.
in 56. And he was a football player in 56. So there's
Are you talking about Milton?
Milton.
Okay, we've had so many White Oak Roughnecks who have died in accidents, like Milton, Roy Bruce, Pat Stites, and I can't.
Coach Tommy and his wife.
Yeah, Coach Atkins and Miss Atkins, and then my cousin Lewis got killed on a motorcycle. So we had a lot of Roughnecks to go, in an unusual way like that.
There's a history there.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
Did I get your?
I appreciate all you guys
Yeah.
sitting down talking with me.
It was interesting.
Episode 3
My
is
name
in the
Ron.
books. 1970
Ron.
semifinalist team. Thank you guys so much.
Roll, Roughnecks, roll.